Stacy Lipton was smiling as she drove her BMW on a highway in Atlanta. She thought she'd be back a bit later than planned, but she put it down to the usual traffic. Stacy was used to traffic jams in the city, so the delay in departure seemed like a waste of time. She put it down to Atlanta traffic. Nick was almost 10 years younger than Stacy, and a great lover and conversationalist. He was very attractive, and seemed to recover quickly after intimate encounters. Stacy's thoughts gradually drifted away from Nick despite his attractiveness. There were places in her heart for Jonathan and Casey. Her daughter Stacy looked forward to spending time with them, especially now that she was happy. She knew her moods and planned to be patient and loving towards Jonathan. When she got home, she was happy to see that her husband's pickup truck was missing. The garage seemed strange and unexpected, which made her mood change. She hoped Jonathan would come home to greet her after her long trip, but the house was empty. Pondering where Jonathan and Casey might be, Stacy suddenly remembered that her phone had been turned off since dinner. Her thoughts were distracted, and she hadn't even been called. She decided to turn her phone on. Jonathan congratulated himself on having come up with a simple but brilliant plan to please and surprise his wife. He'd known about her planned conference in Atlanta for months. Stacy visited them twice a year, and this conference fell on his 20th wedding anniversary a few weeks earlier. Jonathan had been approached about building a large vacation home for a family in Atlanta. Once the business meeting was over, Jonathan went home to Atlanta to meet with a client, Drake. Drake had an idea that had only recently formed in his head. Boyd, on the 10th of next month it's our anniversary. My wife will be at a conference in downtown Atlanta. I'd like to surprise her and her colleague with a nice dinner at a good restaurant somewhere near her hotel. On top of that, I bought a pearl necklace that I'd like to give to her at the table when she's eating dinner. My daughter is going to arrange this for you, Boyd said. She's in college now and knows all the best places in the city. She'll make sure the necklace gets to your wife's hands. It sounds like you're planning on being lucky when your wife comes home. Why don't you just go to Atlanta with her and give it to her yourself? I've proposed before, but Stacy says she's too busy to spend time with me. She'll have a late dinner and go back to the hotel as soon as she can to rest the next day. I have obligations here and only came this far to be ignored, which seems a little stupid. Jonathan suggested another idea. He said, "Suppose I buy your daughter and her friend dinner if she agrees to sit at the table next to Stacy, and could you send me a live video on Facebook? I'd love to see Stacy's reaction when she opens the necklace box. I'll give you my daughter's number and you can call or text her to arrange everything." Boyd replied, "I'm sure she'll be happy to help get this done." Jonathan's in-laws and Stacy's younger divorced sister were all expecting to see Stacy in real time when he surprised her with an anniversary gift. Jonathan's 16-year-old daughter Casey was also there with several of her friends. Jonathan had everything set up so they could watch the video on the big screen TV. Boyd's daughter will sit as close to Stacy as she can without arousing her suspicions. She will send videos to me via Facebook Live. She paid the waiter to deliver the WRA gift after Stacy and her Keo workers. Sue ordered food, and we'll see Stacy's reaction in real time. It'll be the best anniversary ever, given how far apart we are. Jonathan explained with a happy smile. I set everything up so that no sound will be transmitted from our side, so feel free to make comments, including what a great idea I had. Who is this guy with his mother? Casey asked as Stacy came into view holding hands with a handsome young man. Didn't you? Stacy said she would be with Sue. I don't know who he is. Jonathan said he seems to be a pretty close friend. Stacy's father just made a sound of disapproval and frowned at Jonathan's statement as the couple took their seats. Everyone gathered around Jonathan's TV and could easily hear the conversation. The man said, "It's very nice that your husband paid for our dinner this evening." He smiled and added, "I will do my best to make this anniversary." "It'll be unforgettable, even better than your honeymoon," Stacy replied with a grin. "You better order a steak. My honeymoon was epic." "Did you have a lover then, or did your husband actually manage to ring the changes?" "I did a great job. Thanks for asking," Stacy replied. "You're the only lover I've had in the last 20 years, not counting Jonathan, of course." He started to slow down, which was good news. "You'll have a better 20th anniversary tonight than most women. I'll take care of it. Maybe we've seen enough." Sister Stacy suggested nervously that this wasn't entirely fair. "Stacy has no idea what we're watching or listening to. Why don't you turn it off, Jonathan?" We don't want to miss Stacy's reaction when she received her necklace. "Do we?" asked the determined but very red-faced with Jonathan. "Stacy, let's watch this train wreck for a little while longer." Jonathan insisted while the couple was ordering. Everyone heard Stacy call her companion Nick as the waiter left with the menu. Another waiter appeared with a nicely wrapped package. "Jonathan must have delivered me a wedding anniversary gift," Stacy exclaimed in delight, tearing open the packaging. "Isn't she beautiful?" she asked, looking at the string of pearls. "Could you fasten it on me?" she asked, leaning towards Nick. "Certainly," he replied, fastening the necklace. Having completed his task, he quickly ran his hands over Stacy's chest. "Your husband is so romantic," she said. "You're lucky to have such a handsome man," remarked an elderly woman sitting at the next table. "True on both counts," Nick agreed with a smile. "She has a romantic husband and a handsome boyfriend." Stacy glared at Nick, but the older woman simply laughed at his comment. "I gave you a pearl necklace last night which I think looks much better," she added. "On you than this," Nick joked, leaning down and kissing Stacy on the lips. "That's the difference between a husband and a lover. Husbands give us jewelry and lovers give us climaxes," Stacy said with a sexy grin. "I'm so sorry it turned out this way. I will definitely erase everything from my phone. I have to go," she said, turning away. The beautiful red-haired girl, who must have been Boyd's daughter, whispered as she turned off her phone. The girl with the blonde hair, who I think was Boyd's daughter, whispered as she turned off her phone and the TV, and everyone sat in stunned silence. One of Casey's friends was the first to speak. "It's already late. We better leave. See you tomorrow at school if I even go," Casey replied with tears in her eyes. "Dad, is it okay if I go home to my friends? I feel like I need to be with them now." "Now?" she asked. "Of course, honey, I understand. We'll talk tomorrow. Drive carefully, girls." Jonathan said his throat was practically whispering due to how dry it was. "I don't know what to say," Stacy's mother began. "I think we got the gist of what was happening. Jonathan, you're Stacy's rock. She loves you and is ready to give her life for Casey. Don't do anything rash after a few minutes." After a few more minutes of calm discussion, Jonathan made his decision. He wanted to think about it some more, so everyone left. Jonathan took out his suitcase and started packing. Stacy was surprised by the number of messages she'd received. She'd received and missed a lot of calls. When she looked through her messages, she saw that her sister and mother wanted to know who Nick was and why she was so friendly with him. They were upset that she'd broken Jonathan's heart, and Casey was also very upset. She realized how her family had found out about Nick and how much they knew. They really know where Jonathan and Casey are. How can she get out of the hole she's in, she wondered. I need to find out what exactly Jonathan knew and also what he simply suspected. She concluded, "Mother, it's me. I forgot I turned off my phone last night." Stacy began as calmly as she could. "I see you're trying to call me. Is there anything you want to discuss with Jonathan? Only if you want to. I think the loss of your husband, the alienation and embarrassment of your daughter, the disgrace of your parents and the behavior of an inveterate can be considered a double standard, Jonathan. I'm guessing it doesn't bother you too much, otherwise you wouldn't be enjoying a damn pearl necklace from your boyfriend." Stacy replied, "Why should this upset you? Your father and I have seen enough old adult films to understand what your boyfriend meant when he said you were wearing his pearl necklace." Stacy's straightforward mother said, "Mother, what makes you think I would do something like that? Why do you think I have a boyfriend? Play games with me if you want, but I'm not stupid," her mother said, in a firm tone. "Jonathan invited us to watch you open his 20th anniversary present at the restaurant he booked a table for you and your colleague. We've seen this whole vile story. Your husband treats you like a queen, and you don't respect him. Husbands give jewelry, and lovers give climaxes. I think you said that, didn't you?" Stacy was shocked. "How is this possible?" Jonathan asked his friend's daughter to do a live broadcast from her phone. "He wanted us to see how happy you would be with his gift. Then we were all going to call and congratulate you on your anniversary." On the anniversary, the mother said sadly, "It looks like this might be your last anniversary with Jonathan." She added, "Maybe you'll meet your favorite guy again when things calm down." "I love Jonathan," Stacy replied. "That other guy means nothing to me. It was just something to pass the time. These conferences are getting boring." Her mother replied sarcastically, "Jonathan will feel much better knowing that his wife is not a—" Stacy interrupted, "Oh, this changes everything." Her mother said, "I assume you left your puzzle at home?" Stacy replied, "I didn't even convince Jonathan. I'd say you have some work to do." The mother replied, "Watching you with that man is the worst thing I've ever seen. I highly doubt Jonathan found it better." Dinner the night before, Stacy remembered her conversation with Nick. She realized how bad her situation was and decided to call Casey. "Casey, where are you?" Stacy asked. "I'm with Morgan. She's trying to consult me because my family has broken up," Stacy's daughter replied. "We are not breaking up." Stacy asked, "Please come home and we can talk about this." "Where is your father?" "He moved to a cottage on the lake," Casey answered. "Your lover instead of Sue, please come home," Stacy repeated, trying to think of what she could say to Jonathan to get his forgiveness. After finishing her conversation with Casey, Stacy began to look around the house. She noticed that a laptop and several filing cabinets were missing from Jonathan's office in the closet. Stacy found the bedroom empty as Hubbard's mother's closet. She fought back tears as she wandered aimlessly around the house, noting what items were missing. Jonathan didn't take a single photograph of her presence, which seemed especially depressing. She looked for something to take her mind off things. Stacy was trying to make dinner for Casey, but her marriage was falling apart. When Casey arrived, Stacy had managed to prepare a small meal. Casey was sullen and only spoke to Stacy when asked a direct question. Even then, she kept her answers as short as possible. Stacy admitted to herself that her daughter she had good reasons to be angry with him, but she hoped that over time the hostility would, if not completely disappear, at least lessen. The next morning at dawn, Stacy walked into their lake house to find Jonathan slumped uncomfortably and passed out on the small couch. There were numerous empty beer cans strewn across the floor. "Jonathan, we need to talk. Wake up, please," Stacy said. Jonathan slowly opened his eyes and groaned. He gradually stood up and, without saying a word, headed to the bathroom. Stacy decided to make some coffee while she waited for her husband to return. A few minutes later, Jonathan, fresh from his shower, returned too. Stacy put a mug in front of him. She was hoping Jonathan would start the difficult conversation, but it was clear he had no intention of doing so. "Jonathan, I'm sorry this happened. I love pearls. It was a wonderful gift that I will always cherish. I wish you'd told me you were passing everything on to your family. It would have been good to have that conversation." That's all Jonathan could say, as he was angry at Stacy for making him look like the abuser. Stacy was surprised and hurt by Jonathan's in all their years of marriage. He had never spoken to her in a disrespectful manner. This was clear evidence of the pain she had caused him. Stacy answered calmly, "Tell me what I should do to fix everything. You are the only man I have ever loved that hasn't changed. Together, we can deal with this. This is what I don't understand. What problem are you trying to solve? The problem is that I surprised you with an anniversary gift in a nice restaurant where I booked a table for you and a friend. The problem is that my client's daughter agreed to send a video of your reaction in real time. The problem is that I mistakenly decided," Jonathan said calmly. "Tell me, what's the problem here?" "You know what the problem is," Stacy replied. "You saw me and Nick in the restaurant last night. I know you have dinner with others from time to time. Why do you think that's the problem, Jonathan? You know perfectly well why this is a problem. I told you I was going to dinner with Sue, but I actually went with Nick. You overheard our conversation and found out that we together. This is the problem we need to work on," Stacy admitted, blushing, realizing. She added that in her current situation, it wouldn't be possible to take the initiative. "Is the issue that I, along with your entire family, overheard your conversation, or is the issue that you had sex with another man?" "The problem is my behavior," admitted a blushing Stacy. "You were just trying, Jonathan. You were being nice to me on our anniversary, but you didn't do anything. We're making progress now, so please tell me why you cheated on me. How long did it go on for, and how many men were involved? Is Casey my biological daughter? Is there any chance that her father was the postman? I don't think so. Be vulgar or offensive. Of course, Casey is your daughter. Nick has been my only lover since we started dating. Your comment about how many men I've had and Casey's father being a mailman was just cruel. I'm having a hard time understanding your logic." Jonathan countered, You admit that you are a cheater, but you insist. There needs to be a line drawn as to how big of a cheater you are. I'm not being unkind or unreasonable when I say that you should be honest with me. You say you're one man's lover, but are you proud that you haven't cheated on me that often? I'd like to know how long you've been sleeping with Nick and how often you've slept with her. Stacy admitted, tears in her eyes, that she finally began to feel the depth of Jonathan's anger and humiliation. Besides you, he's the only man I've been with since we got married 20 years ago. It will be 2 nights together at each of the 3 conferences. Jonathan, have you ever had sex with him anywhere else? Jonathan, no. Stacy, this happened a total of 6 times and I deeply regret it. I owe you an apology. Are you saying that a young stud like Nick was only capable of 1 time a night with a beauty like you? He never had you more than once a night. Who cares? Jonathan asked. We probably did it 3 times a night. Discouraged, Stacy said. Jonathan then asked, why did you have sex with another man? Stacy replied, because sex with you was so mundane and pathetic that I needed to find a younger, more satisfying lover. Not because I was bored? Jonathan asked. Stacy nodded. He pursued me tirelessly. I turned out to be weak. It's not about you or our sex life. It's my vanity. Maybe it's a midlife crisis. He doesn't mean anything to me. I swear. Stacy explained, it's clear you had sex with a man who meant nothing to you. Jonathan repeated, did you have sex with Mr. Jenkins, the guy who lives down the street? The street and wears those ridiculous shirts. Of course not. I barely know him. But I find him repulsive. Stacy explained that she slept with Nick because he is handsome, courteous, and successful. He was following her. Do you want to say that you will only cheat on me with handsome, successful men who pursue you? Apart from a few of these guys, are you a faithful wife? Jonathan asked if having sex with men you don't love means you don't love him. Stacy replied that she loved him, but not Nick. Jonathan then asked how she knew this. Successful men will always pursue you. I can't trust you. I can't even give you the great sex you love so much. Don't ever think like that, Jonathan. I love sex with you. It's special and makes me feel loved. Stacy replied, how did Nick make you feel? Like you kept coming back to him? It wasn't like a mother or wife, it was the wanting that got me hooked, not love. Stacy admitted, clearly embarrassed. What did you do with him and how? Jonathan asked quietly. What does it matter? I love only you, Stacy protested, clearly embarrassed. It's hard for me to accept that you are willing to do much more for a person. Who means less to you than the person you love? Jonathan reasoned. You haven't asked me to do that for a long time. I wasn't against it, but I thought you'd lost interest. What kind of married guy would want to get this from his wife, especially when she gives it? Jonathan recalled that you told him on their honeymoon that he would be the only man he would ever love. Jonathan and Q must have had a lot of fun with her. Everything was fine. Jonathan insisted that he had forgotten that he had heard several minutes of their conversation. Jonathan, you insulted me several times and you went along with it. Do you remember how I slowed down the process so that he would give you a better 20th anniversary than most wives? You didn't object, did you? Jonathan, you suddenly demanded, why are we even wasting time here? You found someone. I accept it. It looks like you should too. Why pretend that you want to stay married? It's obvious that you didn't enjoy being my wife. And let's not even talk about bad sex. You are beautiful, successful, and smart. I bring nothing to the table. It was only a matter of time before you started looking for something better. Congratulations, you found it. Jonathan said, don't let the door hit you on the way out. Jonathan, we can't let this discussion end this badly. We have to discuss everything and find a way back. Jonathan said he had no choice that day. Stacy went to work but was found in the break room by an angry Sue. Why did Jonathan ask me about going with you to Atlanta for a conference? You know very well that I stopped writing them after you decided to spend your nights with Romeo from Chico. Office, I don't want you to use me as an excuse for your infidelity. Did Jonathan call you? What did you tell him? Stacy said dejectedly, the truth. I didn't go to the last 2 conferences. I thought you told him we were going to share a room and spend time at the conference together. I don't like being used like that, Sue replied. That won't be a problem anymore. Jonathan learned everything on this trip. I think he's going to divorce me. Stacy admitted. What other outcome could you expect? Stacy answered frankly. He moved out. Don't you think you made a choice when you slept with that nasty bastard from Chicago? Sue asked a little softer. I'm sorry you lost Jonathan, but I warned you that this would happen if you continued like this. It wasn't me who told him. If that's what you're thinking, I know. I didn't listen to you. I don't deserve a man like Jonathan. Stacy confessed after finding out that Stacy was cheating on him. Jonathan took the day off from work. He was determined to move all his belongings to the lake house before Stacy returned home. He didn't want to listen to her reasons and excuses for cheating. He hated the thought of life without Stacy, but he knew he could never forgive her for being so careless with his feelings. Nor did she show any signs of understanding about loyalty and respect. Her unexpected visit the next morning simply revealed a huge emotional gap between them. She didn't say anything that could help him forgive her betrayal. He made an appointment with a lawyer for the next day. The next day he was preparing to leave the office for a meeting with a divorce lawyer when he received a new email from Stacy. He wondered if he should read it, or just after some thought, he deleted it. He opened the letter in her typical fashion. Stacy addressed the issue head-on. He felt nothing but despair when he read her message. Jonathan, I know I messed up this time. I was so stupid to think you'd never know, and that my actions wouldn't hurt you. I was wrong. Lying and cheating can destroy marriages, even if one partner doesn't know what's going on. You deserve better. I've never wanted anything more than I want you to forgive me, but I won't challenge your decisions regarding our marriage. I've lost the right to make decisions for you. I love you and wish you well. You're a great man, husband, and father. I take responsibility for my actions. I accept this truth, even though I feel bad for what I've done to us. Her confession and plea for forgiveness were typical of her. She accepted blame for her actions when she had time to think about the situation. She was a strong, determined woman who expected the best from others and herself. He felt empty and saw no reason to answer the letter. He had nothing more to say after that morning when Stacy arrived at Jonathan's lake house. Her only source of information about Jonathan was Casey. On Friday afternoon, Casey called Stacy to say she was going to her dad's cabin for the weekend. Jonathan would bring her home on Sunday evening. Stacy realized that this was how her life would continue. She spent a miserable weekend thinking about how much she had messed up her life. She had no idea how to correct her mistake or even if it was possible to correct it. Had she completely ruined her once happy marriage? She returned home on Sunday evening. Casey looked rather gloomy. Dad decided to divorce you. He cannot live with someone who has lost all respect for him. I saw him cry several times this weekend. I've never seen this before in my entire life. Do you have any idea how much you offended him? Your boyfriend is probably a lot better than your dad. Casey said he's not my boyfriend, and he's no match for your father, Stacy replied, shocked. It was a huge mistake, and I deeply regret. It's your father I have the utmost respect for. I ask you to forgive him and me for being skeptical. Casey replied, This isn't the first time you've slept with this bastard, is it? You've been deceiving us for years, haven't you? Casey asked angrily. Stacy realized it was time to stop lying to her family. I slept with him at 2 conferences before this last one. It was wrong. John and I apologize, Stacy confessed. Was it wrong? That's putting it. Casey objected angrily. You betrayed your father in the worst possible way. Didn't you vow to be faithful when you married him? Didn't you cross your fingers at that moment hoping it wouldn't count? I know you're upset with me, but not as much as I am. Your father is a wonderful man and a great father. You know it. What I did doesn't mean I think less of him. I acted very stupidly, Casey said, and went to her room. When Stacy returned to work, things returned to normal. She and Casey barely spoke to each other. Her life raft was her job. Everything there remained normal except for Sue's cold attitude towards her. She went to Casey's school events but usually sat alone, unless her mom came with her. This was the only time she saw Jonathan. He always sat as far away from her as possible, and the other parents quickly noticed. It didn't take long for the rumor of Stacy's infidelity to spread throughout the community. Periodically, Stacy heard fathers, both single and married, make lewd remarks and suggestions. Jonathan threw himself into his business, which was the silver lining of the whole fiasco. The irony was that Stacy would get half the business. His lawyer suggested several tactics that could reduce Stacy's share of the business, But Jonathan wasn't having any of it. Without her, we wouldn't have anything to split. I'm not going to deny the facts. Stacy worked next to me and even gave part of her salary to keep us afloat when we first took over the family business. Jonathan was pretty surprised when his lawyer explained to him how he was giving her half of his ownership of the business. A few years earlier, when Jonathan was struggling with cash flow, the company was bought by his best friend Dan, who was a silent partner and owned a third of the company. Jonathan had ceded half of their property to Stacy, which left him in a vulnerable position. He only owned and controlled a third of the business. Tell Jonathan this is too much. Stacy insisted to her lawyer that he was the one who devoted all his time and energy. If he wants to give me a share, I'll agree to 1/10 of what we own. That way he'll still have control without any possible disputes. When spring came around, Stacy was a single woman again and the third owner of Lipton Enterprises. She couldn't even convince Jonathan to talk to her on the phone. He completely cut her out of his life. Casey told Stacy that Stacy wanted to spend the summer between her junior and senior years of high school at a lake house with her father. She knew this was another attempt by Casey to punish her, but she accepted that she had earned her daughter's scorn. Jonathan was delighted. He developed plans to almost double the size of the cabin, and he easily completed the construction by the end of July. It was now a 3-bedroom house. The lake house had 3 bedrooms, each with its own bathroom and a great view of the lake. It was a really modern and comfortable house. On the first weekend in August, Jonathan hosted an open house for his friends and neighbors at the lake. All of Casey's friends were invited, and one of them brought along an older cousin. Jonathan couldn't help but notice that she had a striking blonde look that was complemented very well by a rather modest 2-piece swimsuit. Piece swimsuit during the day. Jonathan noticed that this girl was near him most of the time. She laughed at his jokes and flirted with him every chance she got. "Well, Dad, are you trying to get into a little bikini?" Patty Casey asked one day when they were alone in the kitchen. "Of course not," Jonathan protested. "She can't be older than 25, and I haven't decided to start dating yet." "She's 27 and seems, I'm really interested in you," Casey replied with a knowing smile. "She asks how long you've been single, how old you are, what you do for a living, all the things women want to know about potential husbands. I just met her today, so don't even think about mentioning the word marriage to me." "I tried once and that was enough," Jonathan replied. "I'm not hinting at anything other than that she seems interested." "I wouldn't. Do you mind if you date her? She's pretty sweet, and you need someone to help you forget your mom from what I've seen. Patty isn't in any hurry to get married. I think she's working on her career now, but that doesn't mean she doesn't like male company." "Thanks for the heads up," Jonathan joked to his daughter. "This girl is too attractive to be interested in an old guy like me, but thank you I appreciate your trust." Stacy's company was based on the top 2 floors of an office building in the business district. At the end of the same block was a very popular Italian bistro. She used to have lunch there every Thursday with a few of her friends from work because she kept an informal lunch schedule. She often saw the same people eating lunch at the same time. Stacy and her co-workers became friends with employees of several other companies located in her building. One afternoon, workers from Stacy's company became friends with employees of several other companies located in her building. The bistro was unusually crowded, so Stacy's group couldn't get a table. One of the employees at Benson Advertising, located on the 2nd floor of her building, invited her group to join them at a large table. They quickly accepted the invitation. After everyone said their first and last names as an introduction, the conversation began. One of the women on the advertising team was really attractive and very friendly. Stacy found herself enjoying the young woman's good humor. She smiled as the other ladies began to tease the woman. "We don't all have a rich guy with a big house on Lake Henry." The woman Stacy knew was Mary. She teased, "It must be nice to wake up with the morning sun reflecting off the lake." The young woman agreed, especially with a handsome guy who gently, "Getting out of bed is such a hassle. If this is the guy who picked you up after work on Thursday, I can see why it might be a problem." Another woman said, "He looks a little older than you, but he seems to be in good shape. He has all the hair and is quite plain looking. Jonathan is all that and more." The young woman offered, smiling widely, "He's a really good guy and a really good lover." Stacy's friend immediately asked, "Are you talking about Jonathan?" Stacy didn't even want to consider. "You're not talking about Jonathan Lipton, are you?" Do you know Jonathan? You have to admit he looks good. Heck, he's a great guy, but he used to be Stacy's husband. Her colleague said, I think we should change the subject. Stacy insisted, leaning toward the young woman and extending her hand. I'm Stacy Lipton. I didn't catch your name. It's Patty Lawson. Patty admitted that her husband was beautiful, but she thought he was probably blinded by love. She said that he didn't do you justice. She also said that she hoped you wouldn't be upset that she was living with Jonathan. She certainly couldn't blame you or him for that matter. Stacy answered honestly, You are a beautiful young woman with an amazing figure. I can easily understand why Jonathan liked you. I'm surprised Casey never told me anything about you. I can't speak for Casey, but I'd like to say that you raised your daughter well. She's very smart, attentive, and beautiful, just like her mother. I really like it when she visits us. Patty summed up the evening by asking Casey why he didn't tell her that his father has I think it's great that your dad has a beautiful girlfriend who came to live with him. I'm sorry if I said anything to upset you, Mum. I know how you feel about your dad. Casey replied, I'm still upset that you cheated on him, but I don't want to make you unhappy because of your bad choices. Patty is actually good to your dad. He finally seems happy again. I'm surprised. I'm glad to hear that Jonathan is happy. He's a wonderful person and deserves to be with a woman who loves him, even if it's not me. Stacy responded, I don't think she loves Dad, but she really likes him. She made it clear that her career comes first for the next few years. I want to achieve great success in marketing. Aren't you going to start dating? Casey, do you still keep in touch with your boyfriend from the conferences? Do you think you can get along with him? Stacy, I don't think so. He's not the person I would look for in a relationship. I shouldn't blame him for my weakness. Are you interested in anyone? Casey was surprised he always treated you with love and respect. Something went wrong, Jonathan. I asked myself this question. Stacy admitted, I think I've started to take your father for granted. I knew that he loved me and I was very confident in this love. This somehow resulted in attempts I tried to get back with another man, maybe because I knew I had a reliable back at home. Jonathan was my anchor. He was always there for me. I foolishly believed that he would always be there. I could have gone a little astray and he would not have known about it. Even so, my devoted husband would have been at home. I pray that you find a man like Jonathan when you are ready to. Start a family and use my experience as a cautionary tale. Never take more than you give in a relationship. Be faithful, dedicated, and honest. If you are thinking about something that could harm your relationship, discuss it with your husband. I showed you what happens when you lie and cheat. Sometimes Stacy would run into Patty during lunch. Sometimes she was surprised. She liked this woman a lot, but she also felt a bit embarrassed that she was anxiously awaiting any news regarding Jonathan. Casey didn't want to tell Stacy too much about her father, as his daughter couldn't be privy to some of the more personal aspects of his life. Patty willingly discussed Jonathan with her friends, Stacy. It's obvious that you still love Jonathan. Patty said one day while they were having lunch, He never says anything bad about you, but it's obvious that you offended him greatly. I'm not here to judge you, but I have to say that I would never cheat if I was in a relationship. Everything I see and hear from you says that you love and respect him. I would never do this. I just wanted to remind you that when the passion fades and you're caught up in everyday life, it's easy to lose your way. I did, and I paid for it. Stacy replied that love isn't always about wild sex and great vacations. Sometimes it's about making everyday decisions, like when to pump out the septic tank or what color to paint the house. Everything becomes ordinary, but that's normal. Jonathan he's an honest businessman, a caring and loyal friend, and a great father. I'll always love him, but I betrayed him in the worst way a wife can. I learned my lesson. Perhaps I woke up too late. I told Jonathan last night that I'm accepting a position in Seattle and would be leaving in 2 weeks. This is a great opportunity for me. I told him from the beginning that I put my career. Patty said, I'm telling you this so you know what he's going through, and maybe help him if he gets depressed. He's a really great guy, but he's just not my forever boyfriend. I'm sure he will miss you very much. Jonathan doesn't do anything on a whim. If he invited you to live with him, it means he has a very high opinion of you. As a person, he's a great guy. He's also a SD Jonathan person. I tested his strength, but he survived. Stacy started with a small smile. He'll miss you, but he's a great catch. I doubt his bed will be empty for very long. That's why I gave you the information first, Patty replied with a smile. What you do with it depends on. Just a week later, Jonathan's best friend and business partner Dan asked Stacy to meet him for lunch at the Bistro. The room was crowded, but they found a small table to the side after the usual greetings and formalities. Dan explained why he wanted to meet with her. You know that piece of land that Jonathan bought on Route 21 near the river. I've got a buyer who's willing to pay almost $2 million for it. Jonathan bought it for next to nothing. There'll be a huge profit. Your third will be more than $500,000. Is he going to sell it? Stacy asked, wondering how she was participating in the discussion. That's the problem, Dan replied. He says he thinks the company will get more benefit if they offer it for a long-term lease. He'd like the contract to say that his company will build whatever the tenant needs for their business. That sounds like Jonathan Stacy admitting with a smile, thinking about how businesslike and smart he was. I'm sure he's done the math and his plan will be more profitable in the long run. What's the problem? I think we need to make a quick profit by selling the land. Planning 10 to 15 years ahead is great, but I'd like to get we could ask Jonathan to accept the offer and then pay us our share of the profits. That way, he won't get hurt. He'll get $500,000 in cash to calm any ruffled feathers. Dan suggested that Stacy felt her anger rising as she listened to Dan make his proposal. Are you asking me, do you think money means more to me than Jonathan's ruffled feathers? Let me tell you something. If Jonathan found out, he'd see this as a complete and utter betrayal by his wife and best friend. It would be the worst thing you could do for him. It'd be worse than his wife having sex with some young guy at a conference. Teased Dan. You're his ex. You've already betrayed him. He divorced you for cheating. This is a chance to get revenge and make some money. Dan said that a faithful wife won't fly. We both know that doesn't describe you. You betrayed Jonathan. I admitted it. Stacy replied in suppressed rage. I was stupid, selfish, but I never wanted to hurt him. He's better than both of us and deserves better business partners than both of us will. I'll never betray him again. I'd rather lose everything than hear Jonathan say those things. I've shown I'm not a good wife, and you've shown you're not a good friend or partner. Jonathan will control my share of the company as long as I'm alive. I'll make a new will to make sure Jonathan gets my share after I die. You should know better than to doubt his business skills. Stacy got up and put a bill on the table to cover her half. She'd eaten lunch, then looked into Dan's eyes. Please don't try to steal this too, she said. It was almost a month later when Stacy opened the door and saw Jonathan standing on the porch. She was surprised to see him there. Jonathan had studiously avoided her since the morning she returned from the ill-fated conference. It was the long-awaited conference. Jonathan came in, everything was fine. Casey left a few minutes ago. If you're looking for her, Stacy said, surprised at how excited she was about Jonathan's presence right now. I'm here to talk if you have time, Jonathan began, as he made his way into the house that had been his for over 15 years. Can you give me a few minutes? If you're busy, I'll try another time. I'm not busy, Stacy replied quickly. I just made coffee. Why don't we sit in the kitchen? I appreciate you taking me in so quickly, Jonathan said, picking up his coffee mug. You always made excellent coffee when we first got married. I didn't even know how to cook it. It took me a while to get it right, Stacy answered with a grin. I didn't marry. Jonathan replied, You for the coffee. I've never heard you call them attributes, but I heard you call them Smith & Wesson several times. Stacy said, still smiling, Yeah, you brought out the big guns and I was powerless to resist you. Stacy said, There's some serious heat coming from her. I appreciate how well you treated Patty. She thinks you're a wonderful person. Her opinion of you is one of the reasons why I'm here. A couple of weeks ago, one of her friends overheard your conversation with Dan over lunch. Patty talked about this before heading to the West Coast. I think your dedication and honesty have been exceptional. I have to agree. After the way I treated you in the divorce, you still flatly rejected Dan. Many women whose husbands divorced them so quickly would want to take revenge or at least repay. I would never do that to you, Jonathan. I know how hard you work on your projects and how much they mean to you. Also, I know you'll make sure this land brings in way more income than Dan's looking for. He's a fool to doubt you. Stacy said, I appreciate your vote of confidence. Patty helped me accept you as my partner. even though I ran the business like it was mine. I'll give you a chance to speak up and say. Jonathan said, if you want to sell this property and split the profits, I'm on board. Dan is trying to convince me to sell it. I think he doesn't have enough money. He believes that if we sell this land, each of us will be able to get $500,000 out of the business. Would you like this too? I think you've got a good plan for this property that will bring in good profits for the company and do some good in the community. Stacy replied, sounding proud. You weren't looking for a quick profit. You always wanted to improve the area and make good money at the same time. You've got something planned for this area, right? Stacy asked. I was negotiating along. We're going to be leasing to General Hospital to build an emergency care complex on this site. Jonathan said it won't be as profitable as the luxury condo project Dan's company is pushing, but it'll still make a good profit, and we've got a contract to build it. It'll create jobs as well as goodwill. I guessed it would. Something like this, I think. You're a good businessman, but you also invest in society. That's what sets you apart from people like Dan. He thinks it's better to make a quick profit, but I don't agree with this line of thinking. As far as I understand, he came to you to propose his idea, and you refused him. I trust you, Jonathan. You've never given me a reason not to trust you. I'll support your business decisions until the end. Stacy promised. I know it sounds strange, but it's true. I was thinking about how Dan is trying to interfere with your business. I realized that if he doesn't have the money, we should buy him back. He'll probably listen to a reasonable offer. He'll be happy and he'll be able to run your business as you see fit. Stacy reasoned, I thought about it, but I don't have the capital to make it happen. Jonathan agreed. We could sell this house. Stacy suggested, I can get a nice 2-bedroom apartment. We've got a great 2-bedroom apartment over the years, and we've built up a lot of capital. The house is almost paid for, and you've made some major improvements. This will be enough for us to buy out Dan's share now that we're divorced. This is your home. Are you ready to sell it and invest money in the business? Jonathan asked, sounding incredulous. I don't know how soon I'll be able to close the deal on the urgent care center. I can't guarantee that you'll get your money back anytime soon, or even that you'll get it at all. Do I look worried? Stacy joked. Don't forget that I was married to you for 20 years. You'll get everything back. If you don't do this for whatever reason, it's okay. I owe you one, Jonathan. Money can't make up for my disrespect, but it'll get you away from Dan. I'll agree to this if you come and live in the house by the lake with me and Casey. Jonathan said, then quickly added, You'll have your own room with A. The bathroom is really nice. I don't think this will work, Stacy answered sadly. It's a matter of personal life, not to mention dating and all the drama that will create for you. I'm sorry I didn't think about your social life, Jonathan apologized. Of course you wouldn't want to bring a gentleman into the house when your ex... Stacy replied, My husband lives there, especially that guy Nick. It would be awkward. I don't go on dates, and I don't plan on starting. I stopped going to conferences and haven't spoken to Nick since that disastrous trip. You'll experience the inconvenience. No woman wants to spend the night with you when your ex is sleeping in the next room. If I'm around, it will be extremely unlikely that you might find a woman who'll agree to move in with you, although I don't rule out the possibility of you falling in love with someone else. I divorced you because you slept with that guy, and then I moved Patty in with me. My behavior wasn't the best example. Casey was it, Jonathan asked rhetorically. My only excuse is that I was depressed and lonely. Another man took my wife away from me. I was pretty low on confidence, but Patty was able to help me out. I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. I really wish this hadn't happened, but I don't blame you for falling for Patty. She's a great woman. You're a single man and can enter into any relationship you want. Stacy said, I don't think I've ever apologized properly for my behavior. It wasn't something you caused or created. This is all on my conscience. I messed up and I'm sorry for the pain and inconvenience I caused you. You really hurt me, Stacy. I've never been... I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was wrong. I should have been more open with you. I should have told you that I wasn't perfect, but I wasn't the reason you cheated. You could have told me if you were unhappy. I would have tried to do better. I was just stupid, not unhappy. You were a great husband and a good father to Casey. Jonathan said, I've lost my way and deserve to be unhappy. It sounds strange, but being unhappy makes me happy. I feel like I'm paying for my sins. Maybe you'll at least come and look at the house by the lake. I would like to show it and get your opinion. I took some of the ideas we've discussed over the years into the rebuild. I think you'll approve. Casey has a volleyball match in 2 hours. Can I take advantage of this offer? Stacy suggested another time that we look at it before the match. We can go there together, Jonathan said. Then I'll drop you here. Stacy noted, I was a bit of an ass, but in my defense, you left me in our marriage. You couldn't expect me to be cordial to you, Jonathan. Stacy said, actually, you were much kinder to me than I would have been to you if things had been the other way around. Jonathan grumbled, we're thinking of selling the house to buy out Dan's share. I still find it hard to believe that you're ready to do that. Stacy said, honestly, Jonathan, you can take anything of mine that you want. You've always been honest with me. I know you won't harm me, although I deserve it. Let me show you the lake house. Jonathan suggested changing the subject to give himself time to calm his emotions, while Stacy showed him the house. Casey's room is huge, and she has her own bathroom. It's every teenage girl's dream, Stacy said, when Jonathan showed her the second bedroom. It was time to talk about the elephant in the room. It's a lovely room with another amazing bathroom, but I can't stay here, Jonathan. It would be too painful for me to will see each other every day and remember what I've lost. If we sell the house, I'll rent an apartment. I'll be fine. We have to leave soon for Casey's match. Stacy said, let me show you the master bedroom. It's bigger than the rest. I know you'll like it. You did a great job as always. Stacy praised, looking around the bedroom. You're so successful because you have an eye for detail. Would you stay with me and Casey if you had this room? I would still see you every day, and I don't think I could stand it. She raised her eyebrows and studied Jonathan's face. Are you asking me to share your bed? She said. Ever since I found out you cheated and I left home, I felt terrible. I miss you so much that it hurts sometimes. You messed up, but I slept with Patty for months. That made your betrayal a little easier to deal with, but it didn't get rid of it. I wonder if we can get over it. All this hassle and then we can try to be together again. I don't want to be your prey. Stacy answered firmly. If you want to punish me even more, I won't do it. If I move in with you, I will be completely faithful and expect the same from you. No more young beauties in your bed. It will be just me there, or I will be gone in an instant. I have worked hard to regain my self-respect. I want to be respected, and I intend to maintain that respect. I love you, Jonathan, but you have to be completely on board, or I'm leaving. Casey was more surprised than anyone when her parents walked into the gym arm in arm. She went over to them quickly to talk to them in private. Mom, Dad, does it mean that Casey began? But Jonathan smiled and nodded before she could finish her question. I have a friend with a single aunt who is even more beautiful than Patty. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing. If you haven't already, feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.